Ah, cool.
Alright, sorry. Normally there's I'm just learning. I don't even have like the editing, like the visual software thing. I'm just literally using our phone.
Oh, that was your phone that dinged?
Yeah. So
I forgot that we're using your phone as well.
No worries, man. But okay, yeah, great. So then I think the next question I was really curious about, because obviously we do agree, like, obviously you can't control our first like 7 years of life, and obviously that controls the subconscious mind, and obviously that stuff affected your subconscious.
Oh, sure.
Big time. But one thing that I really was kind of got into is your curiosity towards the spiritual world. Like on page like 30, kind of like looked like you started like going toward that realm. I remember like you kind of like, obviously we have the same similarities. I grew up Catholic, you grew up Catholic. Like obviously Catholicism's great. I'm not cutting anything down, but they do promote a lot of fear.
Yeah.
And like
fire and brimstone.
Right. Yeah.
Going to hell.
Exactly. Right.
I believed I was going to hell at a young age.
Right.
You know, looking at porno magazines and swearing and lying. I'm like, God, I'm going to hell. And God, for me, it got to a point to where, I did start getting very curious about what am I, what are we doing here, and what created us.
Right.
And I always was curious, and I guess even at a young age, I remember praying, being scared as a kid, God, please help me and my brothers. God, please help us, get us out of this dangerous environment, growing up with a violent alcoholic father. So I guess I always had some curiosity about spiritualism, God, what is God, where is God, and I'm kind of still learning, to be honest, about what we are, why we're here, where we're going,
Yeah, nice. Awesome. Yeah, that's kind of very similar to that same path with you and I. Yeah, I'm very curious about that, and thanks.
And then kind of going back to belief, that was dangerous for me at a young age to believe that I was going to hell because I couldn't be perfect. I thought in order to have a relationship with God, I had to walk that line and be perfect, and now that I'm 40 years old, I realize nobody. Nobody's perfect. No, man.
No, right?
The Pope, the Dalai Lama, the Zen masters, they got all the same, defects of character in them, lust, gluttony, XYZ, that old Nick Paxson has and Steve has. I don't think God expects us to be perfect, but those beliefs, man, for me, they also created boundaries too that I couldn't get past, like believing I'm not smart enough to excel in school, believing no one will love me, believing that, I'm not worthy of love, man, and that kind of screwed up my head and got me into the drugs,
But I'm very inspired by you, Nick, and one thing that really, what I was grateful for when I heard your story, what sparked my curiosity is when I heard you on Shelley's show when I was in Florida, you spoke about your childlike wonder. And to me, I really that's part of the reason why I reached out to you, because I was like, wow, that's what made me want to read Innerspace. Don't believe everything you think. Was Nick talking about his childlike wonder and like how that like literally transformed your whole life. Almost you felt like you're almost a different human being. And I'm just curious if you could talk about that, because I resonate with that, and we're about the same age. Like I had kind of an experience like that when I created Smart Stand Up through a childlike wonder. I was 33, and when I heard you had a childlike wonder around 32, 33, and opened your door to recovery, and then created all new passions, getting back into school, like just winning all kinds of awards, just doing like amazing things, man, and just being like a stable person in like the recovery community. I truly admire you for that, bro.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you.
Sorry to keep. I'm learning. I'm sorry. Nick should be talking more than me.
You're good. You're good.
Yeah. This is basically my first one. So the goal is hopefully Nick should be talking 70% of the time. I'll talk 30% of the time. But to answer the question, I'm curious about your childlike wonder. So I'm sorry.
I like talking about that experience I had because, as I mentioned, I grew up scared as a child. I did horrible in school. I was scared all the time. I was, ADHD stuff. They were giving me speed, basically, which I disagree with. But I don't feel like I got to enjoy my childhood like a normal child should, because I was so scared all the time and I had to protect myself. Fast forward to when I was 32 years old, I had a profound white light experience, And that was what I remember. A childlike wonder engulfed me, and I became so curious about the world I was living in, specifically science. And even she was my girlfriend at the time. I just had all these questions about life, and it was actually my editor, Susan, when she was reading through this, she said, Nick, you need to be back in school for this. You know, you're very intelligent, which I've never been called intelligent.
Oh, he really is. Nick is a genius writer. I'm not trying to blow your home, but like I'm really impressed. Like this, right in this book, like I said, Anthony Kiedis, legendary rock star, Red Hot Chili Peppers from Lowell, Ada, where we're at. But this book is, to me, resonated more than Anthony Kiedis' book. So I literally think you don't want to toot his horn too much, but this book is written amazing. And normally I'm not a big reader, but I read this book in 2 days.
Yeah.
So it was like 250 pages in 2 days because I couldn't put it down. So it was an honor to do that.
I tried to be raw and as honest as possible, and the whole reason I wrote it is for people like us that are suffering and struggling. And this is, I think, the most prevalent mental illness in our country, this addiction stuff, and it is a mental illness, but luckily there is a solution to this problem we have. But yeah, kind of getting back to that childlike wonder, Susan, my editor, she's like, Nick, you need to be back in school for this. I left the skilled trades. That was one of the scariest things I've done in my sobriety. Hey, I'm gonna leave a 14-year career and go back to school. And then my mind was like, Nick, you did not do good in school. You can't do school. You're too old, you're too late, and you're too dumb. I was 33 years old, never took a college course in my life, and I was scared my first day walking into class. I could hear all this BS going on inside my mind. And fast forward, I thrived in school. I was so interested. I was the one asking the most questions about everything. And I got a lot of very prestigious awards, biomedical science graduate of distinction award, which I was speechless when I got that email, you know, because in my mind, I'm like, God, I'm a heroin addict, you know, but that's the whole point, that life can be different. But I'll never forget my first day of college, walking in there scared, thinking, I can't do this, I'm not gonna make it, I'm gonna fail, because when I left high school, I had a 1.8 GPA, bottom of the class, and when I left my undergrad college, I was at the top 10%. You know,
congratulations, bro. Yeah, like this.
So things can be different, and a lot of that is because I had a genuine curiosity about the things we were learning. I studied biomedical science and the human body, the psychology, brain, the chemistry, the physics. Those were tough classes, but those were the most fascinating. And I'm still wondering if God is a chemist or a physicist. And my friends are like, Nick, he's both.
Right, I love it.
So,
yeah. Spirituality and science, I think, are going to merge.
Oh yeah, they merge, man.
They merge. I think for the last 30 years I haven't, but I really do believe in the next 10 years, spirituality and science are merged. Obviously, YouTube's great with that. Bruce Lipton found some amazing people that do believe in that. That's grateful.
Yeah, and I try to connect the two in there too, like neuroplasticity. Is the brain's ability to change itself functionally and structurally. And I didn't even know about neuroplasticity, so I was about 3 years sober, and then I heard about it and read a huge book about it by Norman Deutsch, and it's all about the brain's ability to change. And about 25 years ago, we didn't think the brain could change after 25 years of life. And I know it can.
I know,
because I was 30 years old when I got into sobriety. And I remember when I was 2 years sober thinking, oh my God, I feel like I had a brain transplant. And in my addiction, I thought, Nick, the only way you're gonna make it a sober life is with a brain transplant. But nature created these things to be able to change, man. And I've seen 60-year-olds come into recovery and transform their lives, you know. So it's never too late, man, to start, you know, adopting some spiritual principles. And, you know, a book I read years ago talks about living our way into right thinking. And that book was written 90 years ago. And here come the neuroscientists 80 years later saying, yes, this is possible to live our way into right thinking and create new neural pathways. And my brain's still growing and adapting and learning. There's still some fear in there some days, you know, coming on here, there's still some fear and anxiety, but I remember back to my first day of college how my mind lied to me. It said, Nick, you can't do this. And I proved it, the little gremlin in there, which I refer to in the book, wrong.
I love it, man. To me, it's that emotion, you believe that everything, don't believe everything you think on that. Like, it saved your life. It makes you, it allows you to persevere and go after new opportunities and not follow that stinking thinking.
Yeah, and that was the case with sobriety too. I didn't think I could get sober. I didn't think I would stay sober, because for 12 years I tried everything under the sun to get sober. But finally, when I was about 30 years old, the pain of staying the same was greater than the pain of recovery. And recovery was hard, Steve. The hardest thing we will ever do.
Right.
You know, and when I hear people in early recovery or going through recovery, my heart goes out to them because I know how hard it is. You know, and most of the people in my family, unfortunately, have died from this. You know, they can't, I think they got too much pride to reach their hand out and ask for help. And I was in so much pain. I'm like, Steve, please help me, man. I don't know what I'm doing. Make the pain go away. They're like, all right, Nick, do these things here. You know?
And exactly, man. I love it. Because I love in your book the balancing act. Basically, kind of what you just talked about. Give up one thing. Give up everything for one thing.
Yeah.
Give up one thing for everything. And like, that's what the drug and alcohol is for millions of Americans. And I'm so proud of you for giving that up so you can have all kinds of options. So you have the ability to go to Chicago, to marry your dream wife, to like go to just do amazing things in recovery. Because I know if I'm smoking marijuana, getting drunk all the time, that is not gonna happen. The energy's way down.
Yeah.
The ability just to socialize, normalize isn't there. But when we're in recovery and we're connected to the spirit, good things can happen, man.
Yeah. And of course, in my addiction, I couldn't see it as I was giving up everything for one thing, which was my solution to Nick. And drugs and alcohol were the solution, but in the end they were no longer working for me, and it's what happened to me my last 6 months of drinking and drugging. They turned on me. You know, I wasn't getting that euphoria anymore. You know, I was a heroin addict, and I remember I would inject heroin and feel worse instantly, and I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? Instead of drinking a fifth a night, now I'm drinking 2 fifths. I'm like, all right, we just need more, right? And it's getting worse. And that's when I was like, I gotta kill myself.
Yeah, and that's never the answer, man. And but I'm glad you did it, and I'm glad you literally were able to do that.
I didn't know how to get out of it, and I've never met people who drank and drugged the way I did until I moved to Grand Rapids and immersed myself in the recovery community. And I heard some people tell my story, how they drank and drugged. And I'm like, dude, that guy's got 10 years sober, that guy's got 20 years sober. Maybe this stuff can work for me. But it was still difficult, challenging, but I guess I had some open-minded skepticism early on in sobriety, and I heard some stories of hope that made me think, man, maybe I can have what these guys have. You know, and there's probably some new guy here that heard Nick's talk a couple weeks ago that thought, holy crap, man, if that guy can come out of that and, you know, live his dream life, then there's some hope for us. You know, that's the whole point of this book, man.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's why everyone watching this show, whether you're in recovery or most likely if you're not in recovery, you know someone that needs to be in recovery. We'd be just to check this Innerspace book out. Don't leave everything you think. To me, it's one of the most powerful books I've ever read in recovery. It's just right up there with the big book. I actually liked it more than the big book. Obviously, the 12 steps super important, but like I related a lot with Innerspace. I think Innerspace is a genius title, bro.
Yeah, man, it was. Be honest with you, Steve, I can't take credit for it either. Years ago, I was, you know, giving these open talks about addiction and recovery, and after some of these talks, people are like, oh my God, Nick, you got to do something with your story. Your story's crazy. And I started to realize that a lot of the things I went through were kind of real low bottom.
Right.
You know, I know it's a kind of a spectrum, how far down we go. And someone said, Nick, why don't you try writing about your story? And again, here comes the gremlin. Nick, you're not a writer. You can't write. You're not articulate. You don't. And I'm like, you know what? I'll try to write about a spiritual experience, that one I think I had in 2017, which changed my life.
Right.
And I didn't know how to start. I'm like, well, let's just start at the beginning where the trauma started.
Right.
You know, with crazy alcoholic maniac dad. And for 6 months, it just started pouring out of me. I just had so much to say.
Yeah.
And then right around the time I was wrapping up the raw writing, I'm in a coffee shop, and this is another godsend. The guy sitting next to me is like, what are you working on, Nick? And I explained to him what I was working on. He's like, hey, I just published my first book. Let me introduce you to my editor. Introduced me to Susan. And then that has kind of been my experience the entire sobriety. I just keep bumping into the right people, the right time, the right place, and the universe is kind of like how I met you.
Yeah, exactly. The universe, like, yeah, I believe it was a God thing.
Yeah,
I mean, I wasn't even in Michigan. I was in Fort Myers, Florida, with a buddy who's at Betty Ford right now, and I was blown away when I saw you. I didn't know you were a writer. I knew Nick 10, 12 years ago briefly. Maybe through not really a friendship, but more like associate type of thing. We just knew of each other, but we really didn't hang out too much.
Yeah.
But when I literally heard your story on Shelly's station when I was in Florida, I was like, mind blown. Well, I have to check that out. There's, like I said, as a childlike wonder, that's what got me going. That got me curious. Then once I picked up Innerspace, I couldn't put the book down, and it's been kind of like an inspiration to me personally, as well as some really cool people extremely close to me. So we're extremely grateful for your book and to keep them going in recovery, man. And I'm just loving the flow. We're just gonna pause it real quick for the next second. 'Cause,